Hi friends, today I want to talk about how to develop strong and healthy bamboo-like legs. I will give you 4 exercises that develop strength and flexibility at the same time. I will also give you some specific protocols with progressions and regressions to bulletproof your knees, ankles and leg mobility in general. So what kind of practice would I want to integrate into my routine to develop these bamboo-like legs? And to answer that, let me first introduce you to the concept of mobility. Mobility is the ability to move through the whole range of motion by using your own strength. In contrast, let's take flexibility, where little to no strength is required to move into a flexible position, like a split, for example. The split is an illustrative example of flexibility versus mobility. A conventional split routine where you let gravity pull you down into the split position would be an example for flexibility. Whereas mobility work, you would like to hold yourself in the split position against gravity or move into a split-like position with your own strength. Flexibility doesn't automatically translate to more strength, whereas mobility work is actual strength training. This is an important distinction because to move more freely, I want to have the strength and flexibility in my joints and muscle to move into the desired position using my own strengths. And regarding old age, this will also battle muscle degenerations and contribute to strong and healthy joints in old age with a lot of range of motion in my joints. The 4 exercises we're going to take a closer look at to develop bamboo-like legs are the active pigeon stretch, the one leg good morning, the position 4 raise, and the diagonal stretch. These 4 exercises address all sides of the knee and also have different progression levels to make them suitable for beginners and advanced practitioners as well. They are unilateral exercises, meaning working with one side first and then the other side. So I always want to start with my weak leg first to ensure that I can do the same amount of repetitions with both legs. Each of these exercises have a movement and a holding component. For example, if you do an exercise for, let's say, 5 repetitions, you would want to hold the last repetition for 5 seconds. The active pigeon stretch will strengthen the connective tissue at the side of our knees, stabilize our ankles, and increase the range of motion of our abductors. To go into the position, go into a lunge, keep your feet in one line, and place your hands at an equal distance from your front foot. Rotate your front leg to the side until your shins touch the floor, or go as deeply as possible. Don't allow your hips from moving to the side and your back knee from touching the floor. When externally rotating your front leg, keep your ankle stable and put your weight on the side of your heel. Besides going as deeply as possible, you want to strive to minimize the weight on your hands over time. Never rush to increase intensity when your joints moving out of line. Your connective tissue needs time to adapt. They take longer to get stronger than our muscles, so keep that in mind. For this specific exercise, a rule of thumb that I use is to work my way up to 10 or 15 repetitions and 15 seconds holds on the last rep before minimizing the weight on my hands. And how would I reduce the weight on my hands? One way is just by feeling. Another way is using your fingers as indicators. One by one, I would reduce the fingers to support me. Be careful to shift your weight to your front leg and not to the remaining supporting fingers. Wow, that's just crazy. How can I even do this exercise when I'm not even able to go into the starting position or externally rotate my front leg due to limited mobility? A regression of this exercise is to elevate your front leg to a height where you can rotate your front leg. This could mean placing your front leg on a chair, for example. The one-legged good morning is a wonderful exercise for our hamstrings. It's definitely an exercise you want to keep in your repertoire for getting strong and flexible legs at the same time. Additionally, it's great for balance too. Stand on one leg, lock your knees and place the other foot next to the ankle. Then with a neutral back, lower your torso. Don't round your lumbar spine when lowering your upper body. And don't let your floating foot wander back past your ankle. Only go as deep as you can maintain a neutral spine. By placing a hand on your lower back, you can feel if you start to round your lumbar spine. Now let's talk about different progression levels of the one leg good morning. The goal is to lower the torso parallel to the floor while maintaining a neutral spine. However, this might not be possible depending on your strengths and flexibility. So the question is, what is failing first, your strength or your flexibility? If your weak link is your flexibility, just go as deep as possible with a neutral spine while standing on one leg. If you have the flexibility but lack the strength to go deeper, you can minimize the load on your working hamstrings by supporting yourself with the other leg. You can gradually adjust the intensity by shifting more weight to the other foot. Do you need to make it way easier? Stand on the ball of your foot. Or do you need just a little support? Then just use the tip of your toes as help. This is also helpful if you have difficulties keeping the balance. If you want to make the one-legged good morning more challenging, you can do so by adding some weight to your movement. You could use a barbell or a plate when doing this exercise. Don't let your ego cloud your judgment. And remember that connective tissue doesn't adapt as quickly as our muscles. My tip is to work your way up to 15 repetitions and a 15-second hold over 5 sets with perfect form before increasing intensity. The diagonal stretch is a fantastic exercise for our quads, knees and hip flexors. The diagonal stretch will almost certainly benefit you no matter what sports you do. Especially if you're spending a lot of time in the office, you might have very tight hip flexors, which make this exercise a gem for healthy legs. Stand in a lunge position and externally rotate your foot a little for better stability. Then try to touch your heel with the opposite arm to your back leg by leaning back and bending your legs. There are some crucial cues to perform this exercise right. Make sure to use the right arm. This is a contralateral exercise where you use the opposite arm compared to your back leg. Don't lean forward to touch your heels. Instead, bring your shoulders past your hips. Keep your abdominal muscle activated to stabilize your lumbar spine. You want to move mostly with your thoracic spine and your knees. Always touch a target. If you can't reach your heel, aim to touch your calf or upper thigh. Place the other hand on your opposite shoulder. It will help to rotate your upper body to increase your reach. Next, we will go through different progression levels of the diagonal stretch, starting with the easiest and moving on to the hardest version. The most accessible version is to keep your back knee on the floor. This version will put no stress on your knee, and it is an excellent entry level if you have very tight hip flexors. The next progression is to bend both legs to touch your target. Start by aiming for your thigh or calf, then work your way down until you can touch your heel with every repetition you do. If you clear this level, you can start locking your front knee. The last progression is to elevate your front leg. I find it easier to stick to a routine when I have always a next goal to strive for and add an element of gamification. I want always to reach the next level. This is also a reason why I like to track my training session or my practices, all my practices in a journal where I can look back and see where I started and what progress that I made, and it's also easier to tweak my routine according to my current level. And another wonderful exercise for my knees is the position 4 raise. First, I sit on the ground and position my legs to look like the number 4. Then I raise myself and slowly return to a sitting position again. I try to put more weight on the outside leg. This will engage my adductors and the connective tissue on the inside of the knee. At the last rep, I try to hover just a little above the floor for the number of seconds of my repetitions. Try not to use the momentum from your upper body or your arms. You can sit on something like a yoga block to make this exercise easier. I believe that the general public would consider these exercises as unhealthy because your joints or your knees are moving out of line. People like the knee over toe guy, Ido Portal's movement culture, and Christopher Summers have done tremendous jobs educating people about mobility and healthy joint movements. And yes, for untrained people or people who had a previous injury, too complex movements can be unhealthy or lead to injury. But just like too much intensity can lead to injury, or too much volume can lead to injury. After all, there are only so much variables that I can adjust to put more stress to my muscles to build them up. So in the end, putting too much stress on a specific or local muscle group or joint can cause damage. But the right amount of stress can trigger muscle growth and contribute to healthier joints or stronger joints. In the end, it's about balance. It's like Ido Portal says, there are no unhealthy movements. They are just a lack of preparation or a lack of awareness. Last but not least, let's talk about protocols and how many reps, sets, and overall session per week one should practice these exercises. I personally like to practice 3 to 4 times a week for mobility work. However, I would recommend a minimum of twice a week if you don't practice similar muscle groups and range of motions in other practices. For these exercises, I would choose a variation where I'm able to perform a minimum of 5 reps and 5-second holds with perfect form. Then I would work my way up to 10 or 15 seconds. While in the phase where I can do 5 to 10 reps, I would do 3 to 5 sets. I would start with 3 sets and increase the number of sets or reps. For instance, when I'm not able to add another repetition for the next session, I would add another set to increase the overall volume. This way I can play around and see what works best for me. When I'm in the repetition range from 10 to 15 reps, I would want to do 5 sets to drive the adaptability of connective tissue. In terms of legs, functionality, I want to have legs that can carry me miles through nature or urban environments. I want to jump, squat, lunge, sprint, walk, crawl, squat. Have I said squat? I don't know. Anyway, you name it. Sport specific movements are a secondary goal for me. I want to preserve leg qualities that enable me to do various movements geared to move more freely. When I think of getting old, I don't care how heavy I can squat, but I do care if I can lift my grandchildren, or if I can transition smoothly to the floor to play with them. These are the qualities I want to preserve in my legs, and therefore I want to bulletproof my joints and have strong and flexible legs, just like bamboo. So that will be all for this video. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time.